Hi, and welcome back to Diatonic Dissection, where we crack open music to see what makes it tick. In a departure from the regular Pokemon soundtrack, we will be looking at, on a friend's suggestion, the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, as Rebirth came out recently. With that in mind, we're going to be looking at the gorgeous Aeris' theme, the music for your heel bot and semi-human shish kebab, Aeris Gainsborough. As always, do the algorithm stuff, and if you want the sheet music for all of this, head on over to the Diatonic Dissection Patreon, patreon.com/Diatonic Dissection. Now, let's get started. The tempo is 75 BPM and the key is D major. Unlike my videos on simpler sound systems, we will progress through the sections in this order: chords, main melody, the counterpoint if it's there, and then the supporting parts. Section A is just the intro, and it's only 4 bars long with one instrument, the harp. It's 2 primary chords that make up the melody that makes up the actual theme, these chords being D and A minor. However, the chords used in this section by the harp are some sort of inverted D add 9, A minor, D major 9, and another A minor. As it's just one instrument, this section will serve as both the chords and the individual instruments. Section B sees more than one instrument playing, and they are all playing different things and different chords if you look at it too closely. However, the chords used for Section B are D, A minor, B flat, and G minor. The main melody in Section B is played by both the violins and the flutes. As they're all playing in unison, we'll only need one clip to illustrate it. The viola is playing the counterpoint to the main melody in this section. The rhythms are similar, but there are some differences. For future references in these videos, any clips demonstrating counterpoint will have 2 halves. The first half being the counterpoint on its own, and then the second half will be the counterpoint with the main melody to show how they interact. Sadly, the cellos and contrabasses are resigned to their all too common fate in orchestral music, holding notes for long periods of time. Obviously, this does have a very important role in helping to set up chords. Interestingly, the cellos and contrabasses move in a specific pattern of fifths and unisons until they end on a major third. The harp part in Section B is primarily playing arpeggios which help reinforce the chords and their sounds, and there are some nice little glissandos at bar rate as we would expect from a harp. The French horns are playing in unison, with one of them playing just an A, while the other descends the scale, creating 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then an inverted 6th harmony. The section ends with a nice little resolve set up for Section C. There are two trumpet parts in section B. The second one is very quiet as the sound itself is muted. It also starts a bar after the other trumpet. Trumpet 1 also preempts what horn 1 and the melody do by 1 bar. The chords for section C start on a B minor and are primarily based around alternating between F sharp minor over C sharp and G over B, particularly towards the end. The main melody for section C is played by the oboe and has a pickup from the end of bar 10, so we'll start there. Again, the viola is playing the counterpoint to this melody. Although simple, it is very effective at creating harmonies that inform the chords. The violins aren't doing much in section C except for the end of the section where they start setting up for the melody in section D. As in section B, the cellos and contrabasses are holding down the fort melodically. Towards the end of the section, the cellos join the violins in setting up for their role in section D. Much like section B, the harp is playing arpeggios of the chords throughout section C. In addition to the main melody, the woodwind section also plays a supporting role with another oboe and clarinet starting part way through the section at bar 15. The horns aren't doing much in section C, but what they do play sits very nicely between the parts that the woodwind sections play, as you can see on the screen. The chords for section D were slightly difficult to figure out as there is no harp in this section, aside from the first bar serving as a crossover point. What makes it difficult is that most of the instruments are either playing the melody or some sort of counterpoint. However, to keep things sensible and to preserve what little is left of my sanity, I've stuck to regular triads rather than going down the rabbit hole of bizarre extended chords. For section D, the chords used are G, D and F sharp minor. A melody for section D is played by the flutes and violins, much like in section B. They're mostly playing in unison, but the second flute is playing a third below the main melody, making it a minor third. As I said at the beginning of this section, every instrument seems to be playing its own thing. However, only the viola is playing throughout this section, whereas other instruments come and go. So I have assigned that the role of the counterpoint. The cellos and contrabasses get a bit more to do in section D than just holding notes for bars at a time. The cellos are playing something very similar to the viola, and the contrabasses are nearly playing the same rhythm as the viola. Section D is the only time which the trombone gets to play something, and it is just pretty much mirroring the contrabass part. The French horns are playing their own things, and they are pretty much a third apart for the whole thing. Then, for the end of their part, they are playing a descending half note as a sixth or inverted third apart. The woodwind, outside of the flute, don't have much to do, but towards the end of the section they will get a couple of bars with the oboe setting up for the solo melody it will be playing in section E. The final section of Aeris' theme, much like section A, is just one instrument playing. However, in this case, it is the oboe. As it's a non-chord instrument, there are no chords. The melody played here by the oboe serves as a variation of the original melody, with the descending notes starting at D, but ends with the setup for the harp to start again in section A. And that's it, a video where we've had a look at a much larger and much more complicated piece of music than we have previously. If you enjoy this kind of content, let me know down in the comments and I can look at more of these kinds of tracks. If you want the sheet music for this, then sign up over at the Diatonic Dissection Patreon. If you are feeling charitable, give this video a like, share it, ring the notification bell, all those things to help gain the favour of the algorithm gods. I hope that you've enjoyed this video and found it interesting or entertaining, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!